Hi! If you want to stabilize a video inside of After Effects, there are a few ways you can do that. So we have a video here. I'm gonna turn off the audio. And it's a video of a guitar player. And there's a lot of zooming. There is some shaking going on, some flickering going on. The way we can stabilize this is if we go to our right side, and I'm just gonna close all of these windows. There's a window called Tracker right here, as you can see. Now, if you don't have this window, you can go up to the Window tab. And then down here, you're going to find Tracker. Right here, it's checked because I have it open right here. We're going to select the video we want to track. And now in the Tracker window, a few options popped up. Track Camera, Warp Stabilizer, Track Motion, Stabilize Motion. What most people do, and what usually works for some minor flickering and some minor adjustments, is Warp Stabilizer. If you click on Warp Stabilizer, it's going to apply the effect to your video, and it is going to track your video. Right here you can see it's just analyzing the frames. It's doing its own algorithmic calculations, and you don't have a lot of control with this type of tracking. So you're basically telling it what you want here. So the result should be smooth motion. This is the smoothness parameter, which you can tweak after you see the final result. The method we are going to talk about, I'm going to show you what the methods do. And the preserve scale button also preserves the scale of your image, because Warp Stabilizer likes to, warp the scale of your image. So we're going to see what it did. Right here, as you can see, the image is being warped, but generally it is pretty well stabilized. Some of the flickers in the camera that are happening, it cannot stabilize, because those are just flickers, those are just imperfections in the image. But the main part, it did stabilize. It kind of warps when it goes into the zoom, which is understandable. But to fix that, now we can play with the smoothness. So let's put the smoothness to 30%. And let's, instead of subspace warp, we'll try to do position, scale, and rotation, because the subspace warp is the one that actually warps the image. So we want to get rid of that warp in the first part of the video. You gotta let it stabilize, recalculate, and we're gonna see what we get now. Now there's not that much of a warp. The flicker is still there, of course, from the camera, but as you can see, we have gotten rid of that initial warp. There is no distortion in the actual image because it is only using position, scale, and rotation. It is not using any kind of warping effect. So that's the first and easiest way of stabilization. But in some more complex situations, Warp Stabilizer is not going to work. So if we have more complex situations, or we want to stabilize on a particular part of an image. Let's say we want to stabilize on the headstock of the guitar of the guitarist. If you have like a focal point, then we click on our video, and right here you have an option to stabilize motion. Now when you click stabilize motion, it is a tracking point is going to appear. It's basically asking you what is the reference for the stabilization of the motion. And we are on frame 1 of our video. Right here, we need to give it the headstock as reference. So we want to do the reference on the brightest part of the image. So right here is the brightest part of the headstock. The first little box tells the program what it needs to look out for when stabilizing. And the outer box tells it in what area does it needs to look for that in the next frame. So we are looking for the headstock. And if we just move up and down a frame or two, you can see the headstock is not moving that much, and it's still within the parameters of the box that we gave it for stabilization. We can move this center point to something more central to the actual headstock, so something like here, if we want to stabilize that exact point. So if we, this center point is what the actual video is going to be stabilized in the final footage. Okay, so now that we have our stabilization set up, we need to talk about the tracker panel down here. The motion source is the video we're trying to stabilize. The current track is tracker 1. This is the first tracking we are doing, so it is tracker 1. The track type is to stabilize. We are stabilizing for position. We can also stabilize for rotation and for scale. When you click on the rotation or the scale property, you're going to get a second tracking point. Then you need to set that second tracking point on another distinguished part of the image that doesn't change very often. Right here on the guitar itself, if we just look, if we skim through the video, something that is constantly in view and isn't being obstructed by anything are these tone knobs down here that I see. And they're distinct enough that I believe they're going to get picked up. So we want to make a tight box around those tone knobs. And here is another box where the program needs to look for the tone knobs. So we have two stable tracking points on the same object. It is important when you're doing rotation and scale that the second tracking point is on the same object, or I guess in the same form of movement as the original tracking point. Now you go to the beginning of the video and you click, before we click play, you need to go to the options. Options, here you can give your tracker a name. So something like guitar track. Tracker plugin is built in. Channel luminance, that's all good. But here, we don't want sub-pixel positioning. We want adapt feature right here. And then instead of adapt feature, we want to stop tracking. If we click on stop tracking and if confidence is below 90%. So what this does is the algorithm in itself has a calculation of confidence, of how confident it is in a tracking point. And if that confidence is calculated less than 90%, the track will stop and it will ask us for actual human input to tell the tracker if its confidence should be better or worse. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. We click OK and we click play. The tracker was confident up until this point. As you can see, it has stopped. It has stopped on this frame because it doesn't know if it's still tracking the right thing. We're just going to move the center up a bit. We're going to move the box a bit to the left, a bit to the right, because it lost a little bit of accuracy while this headstock was changing perspective. We need to check the other point as well. The other point is spot on the tone knob. After we did the correction, we can tell him to keep going with the play button. It is not confident again. We can see that it has no problems whatsoever and it should be confident. So we are good and we click play. Again, asking us for a correction. There are no corrections needed. We are good to go. And we just keep, whenever it stops, we just keep checking if the track is on point and we keep clicking play. It is a tedious process, especially if you have a lot to track, but it is quite necessary if you want the best track possible. You can see it picked up on confidence because there is no change in perspective. And now it's doing much better. Even with the zoom, if the zoom is happening, we need to increase maybe the box a little bit. Put it right here, put the center, put the box right on the white part, put the center right here. We can continue. The zoom is increasing again, so we need to tell the program what is happening. And that's basically how you would go through all of your footage. I'm not going to go through everything so I don't bore you with the video. But we are going to click, after you're done with everything, click apply. And apply to the X and Y dimensions. This is what you are going to get. As you can see, since we tracked the rotation and the position, our whole footage is rotating and being tracked to this single point. So right now it stopped because I stopped tracking, but up until that point, as you can see, the whole footage, this headstock is in the center. And it creates quite a cool effect. Now, these bars on the side, you can fix that by just going to the scale property, pressing S, and just going to the beginning, clicking this stopwatch, going to where the scale changes and increasing the scale back where it doesn't change and decreasing the scale to where you can. And you get something like this. We have a video that is fully tracked to the headstock. As you can see, it tilts the video and increases perspective to track it. That's it. Those are the main two ways of tracking. There are a lot of details. If you have some extra moving parts, or if you have some complicated backgrounds, if you have some complicated colors, if there are no good points for tracking, you will have to play around a lot. You will have to probably manually track a lot, and I hope that doesn't happen to you, and good luck.